Shiny.
Hello. Welcome everyone to our next session. The next presenter, he's coming from the USA where he works at the project Atomic, and we'll have a live demo on how to build your cluster and deploy applications in 10 minutes. So thanks, Josh Berkus, and we can get started.
Hi. I don't like slides, so there will be no slides. This is an all demo talk. It's in fact a live demo talk. Here I've got a little set of AWS instances, a master and 3 nodes, and we're going to be turning those into a Kubernetes cluster. So let's get started. So we're running Atomic host on these 4 nodes. Now, particularly what we're actually running is CentOS Atomic Host Continuous, which is right here. And so this is the development version that a lot of the developers use upstream in order to actually test out new things. The reason why we're actually using Continuous for this is that we need a version that doesn't have any Kubernetes bits already installed, because I'm going to be showing you an alternate way to install Kubernetes, as opposed to the release versions of CentOS and Fedora Atomic Host, which do have bits of Kubernetes installed which would conflict. So we're using Continuous here. There's a bit on the Atomic blog about how to switch to Continuous if you actually want to try it out. In the future, Kubernetes will be fully containerized and there won't be any bits installed on the release versions. So then the other thing that we're going to be doing here is we're going to be adding what we call layering to the Atomic host. This is our way of installing stuff on the individual host in a way that doesn't break Atomic update. So the first part of doing that layering is that we actually need to have a configuration file that tells it where to find the packages for layering, which is going to be your regular Yum configuration file. So here I've got a Yum configuration file for the COPR that Jason Brooks put together for our slightly altered versions of the kube ADM tools for installing Kubernetes. We had to alter them slightly in order to get them to work smoothly on Atomic. We're looking at pushing those changes upstream. But for now, this is the repository you would install. And then having added that repository, it's time to actually do some layering. So we need a few pieces for this. So we need kubelet, which runs Kubernetes locally. We need kubeadm, which is this quick installation tool from the Kubernetes project. We need a network thing for Kubernetes, in this case CNI. And then we also want the administrative interface here. So we're going to go ahead and install those. And so what this will do is it will take those RPM packages and then build an OS tree layer based on those packages, which will be installed locally. Like I said, people are like, oh, well, aren't you just installing RPMs on Atomic? I thought that wasn't the point of Atomic. Well, the answer is no, we're installing a layer. So it means that, for example, if I install these and I decide that they're broken, I can just atomically roll back to the base image. And for that matter, I can also continue to update the base image from the upstream OS tree without necessarily breaking the layer that I've added for the local install stuff. So again, these are all the advantages of the Atomic and the RPM OS tree base on things. It's just a much more reliable, maintainable way to install things. So that'll take just a minute to install. It's got to actually download some of the stuff. Mm-hmm.
If you were to run that again and add more packages, would it make yet another layer, or does it add to that layer?
The question was, if I was to run that again and add some more packages, does it make another layer? Does it add to that layer? And the answer is it adds to that layer. So the additional packages would be added to the same layer. There may be some way to create a second layer, but I don't actually know it. The person who would know that is sitting back there in the 5th row right there. But if you just do what you would regularly do, it adds to the same layer. So there we go. Now, like other install, update operations in Atomic, we're going to have to restart this, which means it'll kick me out, and I'll have to actually log back in just a second. And then we can start to set up Kubernetes. It'll take a few minutes. Yes?
So what did you use RPM OS3 to download the packages from regular RPM repository?
Yes, the question was, we used RPM OS tree to download the packages from a regular RPM repository. And the answer is yes. Now, not all RPMs that are out there will install this way, because some of them install to, say, the opt file system, which is forbidden under Atomic. But packages that don't violate the do not install to these locations will install this way. Now, the other limitation on this is we can't install any packages that conflict with packages that already exist in the base OS tree. So like I said, this is the reason I had to do this on continuous, because if I did this in, say, Fedora Atomic, it already has kubectl installed. And so installing a different version of kubectl would conflict. Here we go. So now if we look at the RPM OS tree status, we now see that we've got a second version of continuous, and that second version of continuous has a set of packages in it. So it's telling us what's this layer that we've created locally in order to install these extra packages. So now what I want to do is I actually want to build Kubernetes using this kubeadm. So the first thing is I need to start up the local kubelet daemon so that there's something to receive instructions. So and then I'm now going to use so now we're going to do this. So this is kubeadm. So kubeadm is the Kubernetes project answer to people want an install that just works for the common case of installing Kubernetes. You know, when you're installing a simple cluster that's not federated, that doesn't have special requirements, that, you know, that sort of thing. And then if you have special requirements, you can add those in by changing configuration later. Right now it's in alpha. It's going to go to beta when Kubernetes 1.6 gets released with a target of being sort of fully functional by 1.7. So right now it's something to play with in development and not necessarily something to use for production deploys. Now, it's going to actually do a whole bunch of things here. You notice it's generating a bunch of certificates. It's generating a whole PKI setup in order to do encrypted communication with the other nodes. It's creating a bunch of local configurations. Now, I did there, this is the normal is kubeadm init. There's a set of checks that check for problems in your system that would prevent it from installing. One of the things that cropped up this last week, I said this was all alpha stuff, is that I'm getting a false positive violation on a kernel module that I filed as an issue, but hasn't been resolved yet. So in the meantime, I need to skip the checks or it will refuse to launch. So it'll wait here for just a minute because it's waiting to bring up all of the portions of Kubernetes except for the kubelet in containers, which will take just a second. Long enough for me to take one question about kubeadm. Does anyone have a question? Yes. Okay, can you speak up just a little bit? Okay. So the question is, would it be possible to do the same thing with the pre-installed Kubernetes? Not the one that's available in Atomic right now. And our plan is to actually move towards a fully containerized install of all of this. So we're unlikely to ever enable it in the pre-installed version because it'll all come in through system containers instead. Okay, so now it went ahead and installed the clients and the API server and that sort of thing, and now we are done, we are installed on the master. Now, we're not actually quite done on the master. Hold on, the syntax is a little annoying, so. Okay, we're not quite done in the master. I need to do a couple of tweaks. By default, it doesn't run any containers on the master, just on the nodes. And so I actually need to fix that. And the other thing I need to do is I need to actually give it an internal Kubernetes network. You know what? Let's not typo this. So that's going to go ahead and install a network and a network that can be used for DNS and that sort of thing. So if I actually look at this, we can see the stuff coming up. All of our other things, so these are all running containers. We've got the API server and the controller and discovery and proxies and the scheduler. And right now it's creating the network, and once it creates the network, then we can have DNS. Now, while we're waiting for it to do that, let's go ahead and log into one of the nodes, because we need to set up the node in order to have a cluster, right? So we're going to have to do the same thing. We're going to have to install a layer on the node. And it's going to go ahead and install that. So let's see how we're doing on creating a network. Oh, okay, so the network's created, and now it's working on creating DNS. Okay, so let's take one more question while we're waiting for that to download. Anyone have a question about what I'm doing here? Yeah?
So, how do you envision QADM role in comparison to Ansible deployments?
Okay. Yeah, so the question was to compare kubeadm to Ansible deployments. And the answer is that right now, if you want a sort of production Kubernetes cluster, I would use the Kubernetes Ansible. Because, like I said, kubeadm is alpha, and there's a bunch of stuff it doesn't do yet. The truth is, in the future, like I'm actually showing you the manual version of this, but obviously, I wouldn't do this manually. What would happen is that I would just use kubeadm to replace some of the parts of the Ansible install. And to make things to make the Ansible script less complicated. Okay, so that is going. And in the meantime, we have DNS, so the master is completely ready to be a master at this point. Okay, I got kicked off there, so let's log into another node. Now in this node, I actually went ahead and added in the layer already. I just realized I need to grab something here. So we need this. Okay, first we need to start it. Also need two. Okay. So you can see here we already have that second node joining. And I'll add the other node as soon as it reboots and I can log into it. Okay, that's being a little slow, which is why I have another node. Okay, and now we have 2 nodes, so we can go ahead and deploy an application. And, you know, the guestbook application, because we love the guestbook application in Atomic Land. So there we go. We're going ahead. That's spinning up, so it'll take a second to download the containers. Hopefully, they will download before I run out of time. Let me take one more question while we're downloading containers. Anybody have a question?
Yes.
Fair.
These aren't Google containers. These are, where are you downloading from?
Okay. So the question is, where am I downloading the containers from? It depends on which containers you're talking about. So the containers that run kubeadmin and Kubernetes and that sort of thing, they're based on the Kubernetes project containers, which Jason Brooks modified and created a COPR of. So we're actually downloading them from Fedora. And the other containers, the guestbook containers, those actually I think are on GCR because it's a standard Kubernetes example. But I mean, you can obviously install the application from anywhere. And now that we don't have a lot of containers available in the Fedora repository right now, but we will in the future. And of course, we could really use community people to create new containerized applications for that. Oh, I may not get to show you the screen because we're still downloading containers for some reason. Okay, so a couple of other things just to finish up. So information about kube ADM is on the Kubernetes guide. On the Project Atomic blog, we have information about layering an RPM OS tree. There's the issues on that. If you actually wanted to see, the best way to follow this on your own is to actually look at my Ansible script for doing this, which I'll also continue updating as we make fixes and that sort of thing to this deployment option. And that's in my MISC Ansible repository. Let's see, has this come up yet? It has not come up yet. And are we out of time? We got 1 minute. So we've got 1 minute. We will see if the containers download before. Oh, wait. Let's try Knode 2 here. Aha! Yay! Okay, thank you. I'm happy to take other questions after the session, but we need to let the next speaker set up. And I have stickers. Thanks.
Difficulties related with that?